The film commences at an underground fight circuit where Carter Ford showcases his dominance in the ring. A bar owner named Frankie takes notice of him. Following Carter's victory over his opponent, Elwood Dalton steps into the ring. Carter recognizes him and refuses to fight, allowing Dalton to walk away with the prize money without a fight. After leaving the fighting ring, Dalton is confronted by a man outside who stabs him for losing $500 in the match. However, upon seeing that Dalton is hardly affected by the attack, the man flees. Frankie approaches Dalton as he tends to his wound, offering him a job as a bouncer at her roadhouse bar, the Roadhouse, located in the Floridian community of Glass Key. She proposes a weekly salary of $4,000, but Dalton declines, claiming he is already occupied. Despite his initial reluctance, Dalton eventually agrees to work for Frankie, as he sees no other viable options. Upon arriving in Glass Key, Dalton encounters a teenage bookstore owner named Charlie and her father Stephen, who offer him a free book and direct him to the Roadhouse. There, he meets employees Billy and Laura before beginning his duties. As he orders a coffee and admires the peaceful atmosphere, Laura chuckles. At night, Dalton observes as Billy and the other male employees deal with rowdy individuals. Shortly after, a biker gang led by Dell shows up and starts causing trouble for the staff and customers. Dalton tries to reason with Dell calmly, but Dell only provokes him. He steps outside towards the gang's motorcycles to draw them away from the bar before challenging Dell. After Dell threatens to harm Dalton, Dalton strikes him and proceeds to take down all the bikers, leaving the visitors in awe. Dalton then personally drives the gang to the hospital. As he leaves, a doctor named Ellie scolds him for bringing them in as they take precedence over more deserving patients. However, after charming her, she attends to his injuries. Dalton spends the night on a boat on the lake, where Frankie warns him about a crocodile in the vicinity. While he sleeps, Dalton dreams about his final bout as a UFC fighter. Dell and his henchmen arrive on a yacht owned by crime boss Ben Brandt, their employer. They inform Brandt about Dalton and how he defeated them. Brandt instructs them to eliminate Dalton by any means necessary, viewing him as a threat to his business in town. Dalton soon realizes that the locals quickly recognize him, and other troublemakers back off when they see him. He mentors Billy and the others on handling unruly customers. Dalton identifies a man with a hidden knife, disarms him, and escorts him out. After a night of work, Dalton begins walking home when Dell and his henchmen try to run him over in Dell's girlfriend's truck. They succeed in knocking Dalton off the bridge, but he survives. Upon reaching home, Dalton discovers Dell waiting with a gun. Dalton engages in another fight with Dell and knocks him into the water. Despite Dalton's efforts to rescue Dell, the crocodile devours Dell first. Dalton discovers the illicit activities happening in town through Charlie, rather than later learning about it. As he exits the bookstore, two of Brandt's henchmen attempt to coerce Dalton into going with them. However, Dalton swiftly disables the man who threatens him with a gun by breaking his fingers. This incident proves to Brandt that Dalton is not easily defeated, even catching the attention of his incarcerated father, Gerald. Gerald reaches out to Knox, Conor McGregor, his most formidable and ruthless henchman, to travel to Glass Key and handle Dalton. This request comes after Knox's escapades in Italy, where he parades naked on the streets, engages in an affair with a married woman, assaults someone for their jacket, and sets a shop ablaze. Knox arrives at Brandt's residence and informs him that his father has hired him, much to the displeasure of Brandt and his criminal associates. Meanwhile, Dalton goes on a date with Ellie, who takes him out on her ex-boyfriend's boat. During their time together, Ellie reveals that she is aware of Dalton's past, a secret he has been trying to conceal from everyone. Despite Dalton's initial intention to distance himself from Ellie, she persuades him to stay, and they share a kiss. Later on, Dalton encounters Sheriff Big Dick and his corrupt police officers. The sheriff demands that Dalton leave town, resorting to threats. However, Dalton refuses to comply. The officers proceed to physically assault Dalton, with Sheriff Dick preparing to execute him. Just as the situation escalates, Ellie arrives and slaps the sheriff. She takes Dalton away and discloses that Dick is her father, further revealing his collaboration with Brandt. Ellie sincerely advises Dalton to depart from town. At the roadhouse that night, Brandt makes an appearance and approaches Dalton. He begins to taunt him about his past in the UFC, revealing that Dalton left because he accidentally killed his opponent in the ring, even after the referee had called the fight. This incident has haunted Dalton ever since. After Brandt leaves and instructs Knox to kill Dalton and set the place on fire, Knox arrives and starts causing trouble. He beats up Billy and the other guys, leaving Dalton to intervene. Knox proves to be a formidable opponent for Dalton, but he is surprised when Dalton manages to recover after a severe beating. At that moment, Ellie arrives at the scene to provide medical attention. As Dalton prepares to leave town, he discovers that the bookstore is on fire, set by Brandt's henchmen, Sam and Vince. He learns that Charlie and Steven are at the hospital but alive. Dalton encounters Vince, who threatens him with a gun. In response, Dalton punches Vince in the throat, causing his trachea to collapse and ultimately suffocating him. While disposing of the body, Dalton encounters Mo, a member of Dell's gang who is the least corrupt among them. Mo informs Dalton about a meeting that Brandt and his henchmen are planning to have early the next day. Dalton goes to the waterfront and discovers one of Dick's corrupt deputies carrying a large case filled with money onto a boat. He knocks out the deputy and places Vince's body alongside him to frame the deputy for his death. The sheriff finds Dalton and informs him that Brandt has kidnapped Ellie. Dalton rushes to Brandt's yacht and finds Dick there as well, realizing that Dick intentionally lured him onto the boat. However, Brandt confesses that he indeed kidnapped Ellie. Before the henchman can attack him, Dalton detonates the boat he arrived on, which belonged to Ellie's ex, causing chaos and disorientation. The yacht begins to sink, and Dalton fights off the henchman before locating Ellie. She breaks through a window and escapes with Dalton. Knox arrives in a skiff boat and attempts to eliminate Dalton, while Brandt seizes Ellie and boards a motorboat. Dalton manages to get on the motorboat as Knox falls into the water. Dalton confronts Brandt and causes the motorboat to crash near the roadhouse, propelling Brandt onto the roof. Meanwhile, Knox emerges from the water, steals a truck, and crashes it into the roadhouse. When Brandt demands that Knox finally kill Dalton, Knox reaches his limit with Brandt's behavior and breaks his neck. Dalton and Knox engage in a second round, with Knox once again displaying his strength until Dalton gains the advantage and defeats Knox by stabbing him with wooden shards until he is incapacitated. Dick arrives and offers to take Dalton's place as a gesture of gratitude for saving Ellie. Dalton and Ellie exchange one final glance before he departs. Frankie, Billy, Laura, and the others then begin the task of cleaning up the damage at the roadhouse while still remaining open for business. Just as Dalton prepares to leave, he stops by the bookstore to see Charlie and Stefan once more. He bids them farewell and leaves them with the cash bag that he had taken from the deputy. Dalton then boards a bus to his next destination. During the credits, it is revealed that Knox has survived the fight. He overpowers all the doctors and walks out of the hospital wearing only a gown.